Hey, Leishan. Hi, Melissa.
Hi there.
Nice background. I should do that.
I messaged you and George. I finally figured out how to do it.
I've used a fake background before on Zoom, and I never thought to do the reward poster, but that's a great idea.
Yeah. My head is in the way of the number though.
People don't know by now, or if they haven't used it by now. Oh,
Right?
yeah.
I can just move.
Man, I try to get my brain straight for this.
I know. I can't imagine.
It's okay.
You got it.
I actually thought of Debbie's case a lot today because I sat in on a meeting between the investigators and two women from the DA's office. And it's on a case from 10 years ago where they just made an arrest in March. And so the girl disappeared. She was actually a missing person until March. And they had all these clues that this particular guy basically abducted her and killed her, but they didn't have enough for a search warrant of his parents' property. Although they did take ground penetrating radar out there several years ago and found several anomalies. But the parents were like, well, we raise horses, and when one dies, like we bury it on the property, and we've had a couple of dogs that died and they're buried there too. And so that's what it is. So it wasn't enough to like dig. And then the guy or the woman this guy was the defendant was married to at the time of the murder, they got divorced a couple years later.
Oh.
But she didn't say anything until this year. Yeah, that's why it took so long. But with her statement, or whatever you want to call it, was enough for a search warrant, and they went and dug, and they found her.
No way. Did you see that? You probably didn't even get to absorb it yet, but it sounds like the one I just sent you. This young mom, 3 kids. She is here.
I didn't read it yet. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, she's in Central Florida. And what happened is everyone knows the husband did it. They don't have enough, but she's missing. But what happened was the day that she went missing, their case was live on court TV.
Really?
Yes, with the custody battle and all of that. It broadcasted between the both of them, and then all of a sudden, and he's refusing to talk. And yeah, and so I sent it to you because it's like a missing person, but everyone clearly knows, that there's no other options.
Yeah.
But it's weird that it was on live TV, on court family TV, and then she's gone like that.
Yeah, you can't ignore the timing on that.
No, so I'm like, what do they need? Obviously, I responded to the person on the Facebook and I said, it sounds like they just don't have enough for, an arrest, but they don't have she's still a missing person. I don't know if we have the resources to, help in that way, but it sounds just like what you're talking about too.
Similar,
like
yeah.
It's clear cut.
Yeah. And so like the DA is like, okay, well, we have to obviously think about, or not the DA, yeah, the district attorney, sorry. We have to think about like what the defense is going to bring, which is what was going through my mind. And they're like, obviously they're going to bring like an alternate suspect theory because that's the basic thing. But I'm thinking they're going to have to try to prove that someone else came on this guy's parents' property.
Yep.
The hole was deep.
How deep?
He actually buried her on top of one of the horses that was already buried. So he dug like at least 3 feet deep, they said she was. And I'm like, so you're going to try to convince a jury that some stranger, whoever, came on your parents' property and dug a hole for like 4 hours and buried a body.
And on top of a horse.
I mean, nobody noticed. Like, come on.
That's stupid. But you're learning, like, that's awesome. You're connected to all these people though. Yeah. And like hearing these different things.
I'm learning a lot. George, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Hey, Melissa, I told her that whoever that dude should have buried her under the horse, and that might have helped his cause.
Would have made it a lot harder to find her.
Well, I mean, wow, right?
Yeah. Crazy. Dawn, can you hear us yet? She put a note that she couldn't hear us, but obviously our audio is working. So
that's so crazy. I'm glad that they like, so what, they arrested him like today?
Yeah, no, in March, but we had the meeting because the preliminary hearings coming up in September. And they don't have the evidence back yet from the lab, which I found out our lab is backlogged over a year. So it's like every other law enforcement agency in the country, I guess.
Yeah, so that might explain Debbie's too.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I don't know. Dawn wrote that she couldn't hear us, so I don't know.
Oh, somebody can hear us.
Okay. Okay, so our audio is working. All right. Well, we'll wait. We're early.
Oh yeah, I'm so silly. So I can only see like 4 of you. So I thought it was just us just chatting. I see more people.
Oh no, there's a bunch of people listening to us.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just like, right. Yeah, okay.
That's okay.
Sorry, I'm just.
We're casual here. If anybody else wants to chime in for a minute, feel free.
I'm just drinking my drink and having a conversation. And then I was like, oh wait, there's more people on.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. I saw that there's going to be like 60 RSVPs.
I saw 60. We have 15 on here right now, so we got a few more minutes.
Yeah, I'm going through and seeing who's on and who we know. I'm glad we're recording it because so much happens and comes up that people.
Yeah.
I had somebody message me now who was like, oh my God, I don't think I'm going to make it home from work in time.
I've gotten that too. A few people, they're like, I just can't do it on a Wednesday evening, which we get. We just couldn't. We just went with the majority of people that voted in what evening and time they could do it. So
yeah.
But yeah, we'll record it and I'll get it uploaded to YouTube like the other ones, and then
people can listen to it
and go watch. Yeah. So
George, you're so quiet. Hey,
I'm just listening. I'm just listening.
You're just listening to me and Jen keep talking back and
he
forth.
did 8 hours of exercise today, so he's recovering.
Yeah, I'm kind of worn out.
What'd you do?
Oh, I went to the gym and then I went to the park and walked for about 2 hours, and now I'm fried because I didn't realize that I thought I'd been out in the sun enough, but I guess not. So stupid. Well, I'll tell you what else I found out too. So last week, West Memphis 3, that whole deal was going on just down the road from me. So the night before, I went out and ate dinner with Damian Eccles and his wife, and his attorneys were there, and Bob Ruff was there, and some other people, another podcaster, a girl named Jillian. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, a whole bunch of them now have COVID, and quite literally, these people were hugging up on me. We were, chatting, sitting next to each other. We're all sitting at a table together. And so I feel fine. So, and like one of Damian Eccles' defense team, his spokesperson, I was chatting with him through email today. And I just asked him how he was doing. And he's like, man, he goes, I feel like crap. I've had COVID for the last few days. And I was like, ugh.
Oh no.
And literally me and this dude like hugged each other, and yeah.
Well, hopefully the vitamin C will help from outside. Not
Yeah, well, vitamin D.
Oh.
Yeah, Melissa's vitamin D.
All right.
Hello.
All right. I'll stop talking.
We still got people joining, so.
Yeah, I hope they all enjoyed that story.
Vitamin C.
No, I mean all the COVID that was like, this whole group of people, they all just got, Bob Ruff got COVID from it.
Oh, he did, huh?
That's where I saw it first. He put it on Twitter. I text George and he's like, great. And I'm like, yeah, I'm always the bearer of bad news. Sorry.
No, you weren't the bearer of bad news. When Bob texted me and said that 4 people in his crew had it, I was like,
oh boy.
I'm vaccinated and I've had it twice, so I just don't know what else I can do. So
that's about all you can do.
Yeah. Well, at least you're not get like sick. I'm looking to like see.
I'll give him a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's not like I like know anybody, but you feel like you know them.
I feel like I know you guys. nearly all these names. I'm like, yeah, I've talked to you.
I know. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yes, hello.
It's weird being on a page with people like that. They almost turn into family for a while, you know?
Yep.
Amber, the same. See, we see you all the time. Let me find your face so I can put a face to the name. Where are you, Amber?
Our video on.
Oh, she doesn't have her video on?
You know,
Amber,
if you guys
turn your-
want your video on, turn it on. You don't have to, obviously, but.
No. But hey, Amber.
Hi.
Oh,
Oh, so cool to see you guys.
so fun. If you have a beverage, you can have a beverage. We have a beverage.
Yeah.
Cheers. Oh, what you got, Nancy?
It's just boring Dr. Pepper.
Oh, okay. That
I brought a
works.
glass full of water.
Yeah.
You're
No,
disappointed.
I literally just remembered about this session like 5 minutes ago. And so I haven't poured my beverage yet, but it's coming.
All right.
Well, good. We're glad that you could join.
Intermission.
This is
Yeah.
like one silver lining of doing this is we meet some amazing people from all over the country, actually from
Mhm.
all over the world. I mean, I've had a few people from Australia keep in contact and stuff over our cases, and I think it's kind of one cool way that these victims don't lose their voice, even though they're not alive anymore. They're still bringing people together who never would have met otherwise,
Mhm.
and I think that's a really cool way to reflect on what we're all
Mhm.
doing here. So
Yep.
Great.
yeah.
I'm like, I haven't looking who. Oh, Deborah. We'd see Deborah. Hey.
I'm here. I'm here.
Debbie.
Hey, I got it.
All right, good.
Except I may be a little loopy, but I'm here.
Hey, that's how we like it. Don't worry. Don't apologize.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Yeah.
Good. I like to never figured it out how to get on here, but I finally did. So
Good.
I may not talk anymore, but I sure am going to listen.
But
Good
you
to
have
see
your
y'all.
hand raised too. Do you know that?
My what, honey?
Your
You've got
hand
your
is raised.
hand
Hand down, Deborah.
No, lower it.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, okay, this is all new to me. So,
You're a pro. You'll be a pro.
Yeah.
oh, Jen knows me pretty well, so she knows I'm kind of going, duh.
Oh. Well,
I'm going to listen.
Right. Well, George, you want to start?
Yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. About half the people who are RSVP'd are on here now, so we'll go
Yep.
ahead. I'm sure a few of them will kick on here in a few minutes. I guess right now, we want to start off with just a few quick notes, and then we're just going to go straight to questions because we know that's what you guys want to do anyway. Status of the case, the status is pretty much the same as it's been. We're still waiting on DNA testing results. We honestly don't know where in the process that's at, so we don't want to make any promises as to when it can be, those results will come back. One of the problems that we're having around the country is a lot of labs are way behind. That was one consistent thing when I spoke at CrimeCon a couple months ago. One consistent theme was that there is a backlog, so that could be a legitimate reason why we haven't gotten any results. Obviously, you guys know that we're about to release a book about this case. The book is called Silent Silhouette: Who Killed Deborah Sue Williamson and Why. And we're actually going to release the cover of that book onto our page probably in the next day or so, just so you guys can check that out. We're very close now, and most of, or 90, I say, Jim, probably 95% of the work we've done on this case will be in that book. So
Yeah, that's the point of it.
yeah, all the interviews we've done, the contemporaneous notes, everything. So you guys will have a full archive of everything we did. And so that'll probably help out a lot. Jen, I guess, do you want to expand on maybe the potential situation with the DNA a little bit more? Because that's more your wheelhouse than mine.
Yeah, so the evidence, whatever evidence was sent by Lubbock PD, went to a place called DNA Labs in Florida. It's a really well-known lab. It's one of the most widely used labs in the country, or most widely used by law enforcement agencies in our country. I've done some poking around in the last weeks because we didn't know if maybe the DNA results, whatever they are, did come back and we just weren't told, which is a possibility. or whether the DNA, they just haven't finished Debbie's evidence yet. And from poking around with our connections and stuff, we believe it's the latter, that the results have not come back yet. And a big contributor to that is that the lab moved locations earlier this year. And you can imagine the massive amount of equipment that this size forensic lab has, having to pack it up properly and move it to a secondary location, unpack it. Probably some things get broken. They got to set the whole thing back up again, probably get accredited again before they can start working on evidence. So unfortunately, in this case and many others, that move caused a lot of delays with the lab. And it's really unfortunate because really the overall purpose of some of these independent labs starting up years ago was to help law enforcement with their backlog and to speed up the process. So on another case I've worked, we used a lab out of Salt Lake City where Francine Bardot works. Actually, it's her lab. And she has a strict 30-day turnaround. And she also partners with Pure Gold Forensics out of California. And then they have a 30-day turnaround on their portion. That gives you an example of just those two labs. DNA labs does not give a guaranteed turnaround time. So we're in limbo. But something I wanted to explain is that most likely, especially in Debbie's case, because the evidence is so old, whatever results they get, it's not going to just be like, oh, we have this perfect DNA profile, we put it in CODIS, and this is our perpetrator. The chance of that happening is almost about zero. And that's actually close. It's very low percentages, even in newer cases. And it's not necessarily because the DNA or the evidence has degraded, but because in Debbie's case, we're most likely dealing with touch DNA, which is this individual skin cells that you slough off your fingers when you touch something. You can get an individual skin cell and get a partial DNA profile from it, but you don't always get the entire full profile. So what I suspect will probably happen is Lubbock PD will get some results back, and it will probably have some partial profiles. For sure, Debbie's is going to be on there, and most likely Doug's because she lived with him. Hopefully there will be at least a third or maybe even a fourth partial DNA profile that they get off this evidence. So now you've got two issues. One is that you don't have a full profile for anybody, but the other issue is that you have 3 or 4 profiles mixed together. But there's good news. I actually had a meeting with a company, an up-and-coming company, that can now take a mixture of up to 9 DNA profiles and separate them all into individual profiles. So even if they get back 4 mixed profiles, there are places that can separate those. So it's not an end game just because it's mixed. And it's not an end game just because our perpetrator profile isn't complete. An incomplete profile can actually help us eliminate people. It can't 100% say this is the perpetrator, but what it can do is eliminate people off that suspect list, because if these 13 points on our suspect DNA profile don't match up with Joe Blow's DNA that we've gotten, he's out. It wasn't him. And we can say that for sure. So there's a lot of situations that may be going on or that are going to occur with the DNA in Debbie's case. And I'm telling you all this because once Lubbock PD gets the results back, there's likely still going to be several months of time to where they may have to separate the mixture. They may have to try, they'll have a partial profile and they have to do comparisons. They may even get a full profile if we're super lucky, but the perpetrator's DNA isn't in CODIS. So they might have this perfect DNA profile, but they don't know who it belongs to. And so then it becomes a situation of having to get search warrants for particular people to go get their DNA and do the comparison. So unfortunately, even when they get the results back, they're probably not going to be finalized results. And we're still looking at several months of work, but at least once they get back whatever it is, it's progress. So if any, I don't know if George, should we take questions on that now or?
I think Teresa asked, hey guys, any news on the newer, more advanced DNA testing, MVAC? I don't think that we know specifically if they're using, and are they using MVAC at that lab, Jen?
Oh yes, they have MVAC.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll tell you guys this. I have a great podcast episode on my podcast with Jared Bradley, the CEO of MVAC, and his dad is the inventor of the MVAC method. In the story, how his dad came up with it is absolutely fascinating.
It is
If you
really
haven't listened to
interesting.
it. Yeah.
And say what we hope that they sent in at least as a piece or two of evidence of Debbie's case is her clothing, because we know the killer
Mhm.
touched her clothing. If that's what they sent in, yes, MVAC would be the most appropriate technology to use in order to extract the touch DNA off of those surfaces.
Yeah, I mean, quite literally, and Jennifer and I've talked about this case a lot, and I think Francine's lab was the one that did it. There was a case in Utah where a girl had been beat to death with some rocks, and they had swab tested the rocks, and they could not come up with a profile at all. And so to get a profile, you need about 0.5 nanogram of DNA. And so they MVAC'd, these rocks had sat in the evidence locker room for 18 or 20 years. They MVAC'd it, and when they did, they got 21 nanograms of DNA after
Wow.
it had already been swabbed. So it had already been altered to a degree. So, and they were able to catch the guy in Florida, and he raped and murdered this poor girl over in Utah, and they caught him after nearly 20 years.
Wow.
Also, let's see here. Oh, I was going to tell you, Jen, Cammie's trying to get on and she can't figure it out. So she's messaging you.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to help her. You know, I'm as me and a computer are about like a monkey banging rocks together. I mean,
George.
yeah, trust me, Jennifer knows.
Please.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, did you see the other questions? If I can help read that too. Michelle had a question about needing more funds.
I don't know about needing funds at this point. We may broach that subject at some point if we need to raise some money. Michelle, I mean, we don't know. I mean, like in the West Memphis 3 case I'm involved in right now, you know, they did a t-shirt drive recently just because they needed to bring in, an MVAC expert that was going to testify in court. And so they needed to raise an extra $3,000. And so they did a t-shirt drive. So we may, if it comes down to it, if that's the roadblock, then we will find a way to run through that roadblock. But that actually is a great question.
Yeah. I'm not too worried about money. I mean, there's a lot of nonprofits out there that help provide funding. In fact, for this first round of testing in Debbie's case, Lubbock PD got funding from a nonprofit called Seasons of Justice. They got a grant from them to pay for this first round. So there's a lot of nonprofits across the country that help out with stuff like that. And if that becomes an issue, we'll find a fix for it, because we're not going to let money stand in the way of trying to figure out who killed her.
Yeah, that won't happen. I mean, if I have to pull it out of my own pocket, I'll do it.
Yeah. Or the book.
Somebody asked, do we have, yeah, I know you will, Jennifer, because that's what you work for, just to. Whose DNA do you have already, Doug and Debbie's? We assume that they probably have developed a profile for Doug and Debbie. We don't know that for a fact. They may have to go back. I mean, this may be obviously they didn't have a profile from 1975. I don't know how they would have developed a profile otherwise, unless there's something we're not privy to. But basically, it's kind of like walking down the yellow brick road. They'll develop the profiles, and then they'll go out and they'll try to figure out who they can eliminate and who they can tie to those profiles.
Yeah, Debbie's would be pretty easy to put together through family members, living family members. And Doug's already said, I'll drive down to Lubbock and give him my DNA, or go to my local law enforcement agency and let them take it and they can transfer it. So be very easy to get his. He'll give up the prints, DNA, polygraph, whatever they ask him to do, he'll do. So
yeah, me and Doug can just take a road trip down there.
Yeah, you guys, that's true. Yeah, you guys are pretty close together.
One thing that one of the purposes of this, we want to do some speaking engagements in Lubbock, you know, if it's possible. You know, bookstores are kind of a thing of the past now, but if you guys know of any like book clubs, or if you know of just clubs in general, you know, I go and speak at Kiwanis clubs a lot when I'm working on one of these cases, just to raise awareness. And so if we can coordinate it, if we could maybe get 2 or 3 meetings, you know, in Lubbock over a couple-day period, you know, like some public speaking like that, because that's the best way to raise awareness and to organically grow group out, because that, I mean, I can't emphasize enough how valuable that is. And, you know, it won't take a miracle, but it'll take something just quite less than a miracle to solve Debbie's case. And so we've got to turn every rock we can, and we've got to connect with every single human being that we possibly can. So if you guys have any ideas about that, book clubs, social clubs, anything like that, I'm more than willing to come and speak. Jennifer obviously is. I know Melissa will jump on a plane and come down there and do something. So sorry, I spoke for you, Melissa. I don't know if you would speak in public or not. But it's something that we would definitely like to do. And we'd like to coordinate up. If, you know, for us to make a trip over there, you know, maybe if we had 3 or 4, that would probably be ideal. Maybe over a long weekend. I've done talks at wineries. I did one at a casino one time in Oklahoma, which was actually a lot of fun. And I didn't even gamble that night. I was in Vegas for 4 or 5 days, and I didn't gamble a single time there either. So yeah, I know,
That's
it's
a
crazy.
crime, George. That's a crime. You can't go back to Vegas. You're banned.
I was busy working.
You're not breaking his heart by saying that, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
He didn't want to go to begin with.
No, I did not.
Also, Texas Tech or any community colleges, or even some high schools now have criminal justice classes. So if anybody has connections to those in the Lubbock area, I know George has spoken at many colleges, and I've done a few over Zoom.
Yeah.
But that would be a great opportunity for us to not only talk about Debbie's case in the local area where it happened, but like what we're trying to do here is pass our lessons learned on to other people so they can go out and do the same thing and help law enforcement in the proper way to get new leads and, you know, get these cold cases heated up again. And so it's not, I mean, obviously we want to talk about Debbie's case, but it's also about empowering other people to be able to go out and help with these investigations too. So if anybody has links to the local school system or education system there, and you think a teacher or professor, whoever might be interested in us coming and speaking to their class, we would love to do that too.
Absolutely. I've spoken at many colleges. I've spoken at a lot of high schools. I mean, I don't have a problem just going, because you never know. You know, my experience with the West Memphis Street case, I went and spoke at a lot of high schools. Well, when I started covering it was 15 years ago. Those high schoolers now are in their 30s, and they still connect with me to this day.
Yeah.
In fact, right before we jumped on here, a girl that she wrote a paper about a presentation I gave. She's friends with me on Facebook, and she just got engaged, and she wanted to let me know that she got engaged. So, so anyway, those connections last a long time, and we need them. One question that we've got, and actually I hope you guys will answer us honestly. We want to know what you like about our Facebook page, good and bad. And we want you to be totally honest. If there's some things you like about it, or if there's things you think we should do differently. So if you guys have any comment about that, we would love to take a few of those right now.
You can type in the chat, or you can just unmute yourselves and speak also, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yes, I like the Facebook and the member website because it keeps us updated.
Okay. Yeah, we try every update we can push out, we do. There's obviously some things that we get that we can't share yet, but.
Hey guys, what about Lex and Paul? Have we ever figured out anything about them? If they're still there, what's going on?
Actually, Don, we're going to talk about that here in just a couple of minutes, if that's okay. I saw your question there. We're gonna save that for the Q&A session, because we had a suspicion you guys might want to talk about that. So we're just trying to get all the we're trying to get all the business out of the way first, so that we can just get right. Really, the only reason you're here.
Real quick, Teresa, yes, we were thinking August or September timeframe, maybe, to come down.
Yeah. And it could even be as late as October. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's, because we know, you know, obviously be a little cooler in Lubbock, and I'm from there, so I know exactly how much better it is in October than any of those other months you just mentioned. So,
yeah, me and George always want to improve on what we do, and we're going to talk more about this at the end, but we are looking towards the future and taking on our next case this fall. So if you have feedback on, you know, our Facebook group primarily, or other social media that we use for this, Facebook's the primary one. we would love to hear it, whether it's good or bad, because we want to know what keeps people interested, what turns you off, what gets you to engage and actually comment, and what
Yeah.
leads you to not want to comment. Because obviously we want the most people engaging in conversation as possible, but a lot of people don't. So that's something we always try to figure out is why.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a feature we could do more, I mean, I know we've done a couple of these Zoom calls. If there's something else we could do, because here, and honestly, this would help Debbie's case if we make this page better, because it's the only page really dedicated to her case that's active at this point. But even down the road, it might help with some other, if we start another page, you know, the feedback would be awesome. So message us privately if you don't want to do it here. That would be great. If you have any suggestions. Jen, I guess people have touched on doing a letter writing campaign. You know, I'm not opposed to it. Of course, I'm the cynic in this whole arrangement. So I'm you know, I know these politicians, I deal with them all the time. So I think it's a fun idea. I think that probably we need to wait a little bit just because we don't know at what stage the DNA testing is right now until we get some results, or if Lubbock PD approaches us and says, hey, just stay back for a while. We're on it hard right now, which that does happen, and we wouldn't do that, obviously. So we may organize a letter writing campaign at some point, though, because there may come a juncture where we've got to put some public pressure on some public officials. And, you know, it's been my experience that politicians only do things when you absolutely make them do them. So,
And
or you
that's
threaten
why-
to write stories about their lives and they don't want anybody to know about it. So I've had to do that a lot.
Yeah, and
Anyway,
that's
Jen, go
not,
ahead.
that wouldn't really be geared towards the detective who's working the case.
Right.
I think he's doing a good job. Just to be
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that the department could be providing him a hell of a lot more support and more detectives to be out interviewing people and taking fingerprints and stuff like that. And that's not to say that that's not happening, but because we have got wind that that's happening a little bit, but it doesn't seem to be to the level to where we would want the attention, you know. But we also understand that in almost every city across the country, the homicide rate is way up and they have to work the fresh cases first. So that may also be the issue. But I think maybe some public pressure. I don't know, George, I think one time you mentioned the mayor, because he's probably not even aware of this case or the work that's being done on it, or the massive amount of work that's been done over the past year, you know. And I do think all of you guys that have been part of our Facebook group and our effort, and a lot of you have helped behind the scenes with stuff. I think you deserve some answers, or at least a public statement at this point. I mean, it's been a year since we took this on and they knew it. So that's just my take.
Yeah. A couple of comments here. If somebody, let's see.
Michelle has her hand up too, George, if you didn't see.
Oh, Michelle, go ahead.
Hi, sorry.
That's okay.
Quick question. So this is the first time I've ever participated in crowdsourcing. And some of you know that this is really the first time I've ever been on Facebook. I've been trying to stay away from social media. When you guys give a thumbs up, a like on comments, is it that you guys like that the question is being asked or the comment was made, or is it that you have an answer to the question? And like, what does the like mean for a lot of the stuff on a case like this?
Michelle, I'll tell you, I tend to like as many comments as I can for one simple reason. I like comments because of the participation.
Yeah.
It may not have anything to do with what somebody actually said. Now, if they say something that's just, I think, over the top or outrageous or something I don't want to, I don't want to interact with, occasionally I won't do that. Or sometimes I just miss a comment, so if I didn't like something, it's not because, I may have just missed it. For me, it's participation, just because there's no such thing necessarily as a stupid question. There are some questions that are more relevant than others, obviously. But yeah, for me, it's mostly participation. Jen, what about you?
I totally agree. It's not like us giving a gold star to anybody for their comment. I'm pretty much the same as George. I think I read every single comment. And there's some that are can be a little outlandish and stuff, and I just leave it alone. But for the most part, I'm like George, and I just try to click like if I think that the participation is helping move the discussion forward and such. So, but don't, again, we miss stuff sometimes. So please, like, if we don't like a post or something, don't take it personally. It's nothing like that at all.
Also
Start
part of,
writing them
somebody had
commands.
made a comment about like, oh man, that's nice sunshine right in my face. About a comment about like, sometimes they're like, I don't want to use a word like maybe somebody's trolling or making negative comments, and it starts like maybe like a little firestorm or something like that. And Jennifer hates this. She's hated it from the very beginning, years and years ago. Sometimes arguments like that are effective. They actually work. They actually draw somebody into a conversation. And so if somebody's just being flat out, disrespectful and rude to a degree that's, I mean, we're all adults. I mean, I'm sure we all put our adult pants on today and we can handle it. But I do see some of those comments and I'm like, and here's the thing. Sometimes, I'm not saying that we've directed any comments on this page necessarily, but that is a part of our method, is that sometimes we will drop a question in because we're looking for a specific response from a specific person. So sometimes if you see like a big long chain of it looks like there's this bantering back and forth, we're hoping and praying that someone will jump in and say what we want them to say.
Yeah. Or at least respond, because sometimes we're just trying to force a response of any kind.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of, there's more about that in our book. Actually, I wrote a pretty hefty chapter about some of that methodology and how we used it in the last case that we worked, and really it worked very well sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, those people would fight. I mean, my God, you should have seen. I mean, I was telling Jennifer, I was on a page on that case because I'd been writing about it for 17 years, and the page got deleted. There would literally be nights when I would look and there would be 600 and 700 comments.
Yeah.
And this was an organically grown page. And then the page administrator, God rest her soul, our good friend Kim, she actually passed away, but she got so stressed out by it, she deleted it. And that thing would have been a treasure trove if Jennifer and I had been able to access it. Now, we started our own page and we did very well. I mean, we lured the killer onto the page, so that's about as good as you can do. But that other page would have been gold if we had been able to access it.
Yeah.
So sorry if you guys get into big old fights. I'm not saying I enjoy it, but I might enjoy a little bit.
Just remember, there's a lot more going on than just the face value of what's being written sometimes.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And
Jen, you want to talk about case submissions real quick?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, well, let me back up a little bit. I mean, this is one more question we want to ask after this topic is, what ideas do you guys have for us continuing on Debbie's case? But me and George feel like, I mean, June 21st of last year was the day we took it on, and we've worked it every single day since then. I'm not saying we worked it 8 hours a day each since then, but we have both, along with a lot of you guys, combined put in thousands of hours on this case. We have passed so many gigabytes of data to the Lubbock PD. They have a carbon copy of all our investigative files, but we're kind of at a point where we're not really sure what else we can do. We've pushed buttons, we've reached out, I think our spreadsheet, I think we've actually gotten in contact with 63 people total now and talked to them either over the phone or in person. Mm-hmm. People who had direct connection to Debbie and or Doug or their families. And the people who aren't going to talk to us, they're obviously not going to talk to us. There's nothing we can do to get them or persuade them to talk to us. And so we feel like we're kind of getting to a dead end street on what else we can contribute to this without direct input from Lubbock PD guiding us. So where was I going with that? So for the future, so what we're doing now is Debbie's case is never going to fall off the radar for us. The Facebook group will always be active. We know there's valuable information in there. We're going to keep it going just like we are. But in terms of specific investigative actions, we feel like we're at the point where we need to start shifting our resources to another case. And so what I'll do at the end of tonight is put a link in the chat, but we've created a submission form because this time around, we want someone to come to us with a case that wants help. Debbie's case and Rebecca's case, we didn't insert ourselves. I mean, George got assigned to it as a journalist in the beginning. I happened to fall into it. And we did a great job, and we wanted to do that again with Debbie's case. And although a family member sort of asked for help, we sort of stepped in as well. And most of you know what happened, and we're not going to get into that. But this time we want a case where the friends and family really, really want help, and they're going to be 100% supportive through the whole process. And, you know, they're going to work with us the whole way and not turn. So we created a case submission form. Like I said, I'll give you the link. You don't have to be a family member of the victim to submit a case for our consideration. But ultimately, if the victim has family members alive, obviously we're going to need to contact them and we're going to need their support. But feel free to submit any case that you know about that's an unsolved homicide. And it can't be a fresh one because police definitely aren't going to cooperate on a fresh case. So it's basically got to be a cold case. And there's a couple parameters, like we don't feel we have the resources right now to do missing persons cases. I mean, that's a whole nother level. And the same goes for, we've had a lot of people come to us in the past few years saying, my friend's son, it was ruled a suicide, but I'm convinced that he was actually murdered. I don't think we're at the level yet of having that kind of influence or the resources to try to reverse or change a suicide to a homicide manner of death either. So pretty much what we're looking for is cases where, you know, the homicide happened several years ago at a minimum and the body was found. And that's really it. I mean, those are the two basic things. And so over the next few weeks, if you think of cases or know of cases that might fit that, please use our case submission form to submit your ideas. And if you know family members of a victim that want help, please let them know about this submission form as well. Please feel free to share it. Anything else?
And this time we will have a contract. Am I correct?
Unfortunately, we have to do that. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
they will have to sign a non-disclosure agreement and a memorandum of cooperation to where what
Awesome.
happened this spring, it won't happen again because,
Awesome. Sounds good.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't be speaking at a college in front of a bunch of students and get a text message from somebody that, hey, the Lubbock TV station just did a hit piece on you and Jennifer for something we volunteered to do. I told the station manager, I said, you know what? I've had a lot of unique experiences in my life, and this is a first.
Yeah, what, 20 years of journalism?
Yeah, I've never. So I guess we'll open it up now to questions. I guess let me scroll through some of these real quick.
Yeah.
I know somebody had asked, I saw where the original investigators are still alive, and they're not.
No.
So we're, let's see, what info do we need to look at a new case? I think Jennifer just kind of went over that. And if you have any questions, like if you want more detail, just DM us at the end of this. We'll let you know. I mean, and we're going to be pretty picky about it. So Dawn actually opened up with a question about Paul and Lex. I guess, Dawn, do you have anything specific you want to ask first?
No, I'm just wondering where, why nothing, I'm kind of stuck to the point where, why isn't Paul or Lex being more investigated than they have been? I mean, I can't say that I know that they're not, but it doesn't feel like they are. And I have a problem with that.
We can tell you this, Dawn, we don't know to the extent that they're being investigated, but they are definitely on the radar of the Lubbock PD. We know that for a fact. Jennifer and I were, obviously we're saving some of these details for the book, but I can tell you right now that, I interviewed Paul for an hour, Jennifer interviewed him for close to an hour, and he made some statements to us that were factually not correct. They do not match the original case files. And I want to make sure that people understand that there are levels to this thing. There are some false memories or lack of memory that can be attributed to the length of time, 46 years. But we talked to several witnesses who gave statements in this case. It is uncanny how it's actually striking I don't even know if uncanny is a strong enough word,
Yeah.
how accurate their statements to us compared to their original statements to police. We couldn't believe it. It almost looked fake to us in a way. But the thing of it is, they don't have access to those files. They've never seen them. So those are genuine reflections. Now, when it comes to Paul, there's some problems.
I
And
figured so.
Yeah.
and he won't, we haven't talked to him. He hasn't returned any of our messages recently. So, listen, we've said this from the very beginning. We're not accusing him of anything. We're not
Right.
accusing Lex of anything. But the statements that he gave us, they do not match what he told the police in 1975. I can
And-
tell you that right now.
And George, do you want to mention too, and Jen, when we were in Lubbock and actually surveilling Paul at the
Mhm.
bar, and we left cards on his table and also on his truck, and not a word from him. And I would think, and we mentioned it on the podcast, but I would think if someone is leaving cards on your truck and on your table, if you didn't do something or have no involvement, I think it would really make you mad. And you would be calling these people up and saying, why are you stalking me or finding me or leave me
Mhm.
alone? To my
Yeah.
knowledge, Jen and George, he has not contacted you, correct?
No, and we would welcome that conversation. If he called me up
Right.
and wanted to scream and yell and be mad about it, I would have no
Correct.
issue with that. I mean,
Correct.
Jennifer obviously wouldn't either.
Right.
Because we need to figure out why his story now is so different than his story from back then. Because it is striking how different it is.
I would
Well,
like to know that too.
it's not just him. I mean,
Not just him, not that.
yeah.
True. We have information, obviously we've had, our difficulties getting a hold of Lex. Everybody's aware of that. But there are some things there that we will reveal that we know. And, he needs to be questioned. He needs to be
Yeah.
vetted just like everybody else. I told Jennifer, I think there was 190,000 people living in Lubbock, Texas at the time. And there are two of the guys that need to be vetted because they were living in Lubbock, Texas.
Yeah, along with many others, but
Mm-hmm.
and I'll make one thing clear. By the way, I know I'm a criminal investigator for my local sheriff's department, so officially. So we're hoping that helps with a partnership down the road between the university that I work for, George's company, and either this department that I'm now working for or one of the other local departments. But that aside, I just in my first few days as on this new job, I've seen several cases where the witnesses, somebody knew what happened or a confession was made to them and they were too scared to come forward because they were scared of being prosecuted. What I can say with, I think the utmost confidence, George, is Debbie's case is going on 47 years. And if the killer has confessed to you or you have some kind of exterior knowledge about the crime, you're not going to be prosecuted at this point. Just go in and give your statement and get it over with. If you know what
Yeah.
happened, please let this family and Debbie rest in peace. I mean, just give them some peace. You'll give a statement, you're not going to be charged. The statute of limitations is long over in any kind of charge of that manner. So if you have information, if you haven't already done so, please, we would ask you to reach out to the crime line at Lubbock PD and just let them know.
Michelle sent out a message. She said maybe as counsel telling him not to engage. And Michelle, that could be very true.
Sure.
I mean, that would be smart.
Yeah.
He only reached out to me after, I tried for months to get a hold of him and he wouldn't contact me at all. And then I did a podcast episode where we talked about the towels maybe being part of the trove of stuff that was collected for DNA testing. And then he finally called me right after that episode came out. I don't know if that may be a coincidence. I have no idea. I mean, obviously, if, I would talk to him about it today if he wanted to. But he may be operating under the advice of counsel, which, that's his prerogative.
And honestly, I mean, George, you said this. I mean, I don't have kids, but like I tell all my friends with kids, if you ever get cuffed and taken to a police station, you don't say a single word other than I want my lawyer. So don't ever talk to police. If you've been given your Miranda warning, do not waive your rights, get a lawyer. So, you know, he may just be going by that type of advice, and I wouldn't blame him one bit. But again, if it comes down to the thing of like, he has some kind of knowledge, but he's not implicated, come on, give it up. I mean, if it was your
Yeah.
family member, you'd want to know. So,
Yeah. And I will give you guys this caveat. He said that he never dated Debbie, that he didn't even know what I was talking about when I asked him if they dated, which is factually not true.
yeah.
He was interviewed by the police specifically about dating her.
And he didn't tell me he did not date her, but the topic didn't come up. He didn't, it was like, he omitted that, but I didn't ask, so. All right,
And
what
Jen,
else?
on the Lex front, I mean, go ahead and what we talked about before we came on here.
Well, we have obviously poked around in a lot of people's past and found friends and family members and people that they were connected to in the years after the murder. And what little we know about from some people that Lex knew in the years after the murder and hung out with is that he never ever mentioned Debbie's murder to anybody. They did not even know the murder had occurred. And again, everybody handles the loss of a friend differently. So I'm not passing judgment. I just find it strange that you still live in the Lubbock area. Debbie's case was still in the news and on the AJ very routinely in the years after her murder. And I just find it strange that a friend of hers never mentioned it to any of the close acquaintances or friends that we've gotten in touch with.
Yeah, one, I guess we could say an acquaintance that was an acquaintance for over 2 decades had no clue that Lex had any connection to Debbie's case, even though this acquaintance was somewhat new about Debbie's case. And they actually had talked about it and Lex never even mentioned that he had actually checked her for a pulse.
Right.
Didn't Lex take her to prom? Was it his prom or her prom?
We're not sure which, that we know they went to prom together as friends.
Okay.
My guess would be his, because back then, usually it was the guy asking out the girl. But, you know, it could have been the other way around. But my guess would be that it was his prom that they went to together at Monterey. Okay.
Somebody asked about what's the book going to be called. It's going to be called Silent Silhouette: Who Killed Deborah Sue Williamson and Why. And you're probably going to see it on our page a lot here coming up.
And again, I want to remind people that this is not a profit-making venture for me and George.
No.
We talked about this in our live Facebook thing when we were in Lubbock a few months ago, but a lot of you on here are Debbie's generation, and I don't take that the wrong way, but a lot of Debbie's generation grew up reading, you know, we're listening to the radio. And that's about it. So we've had, you know, I've written a series of articles and I've had tons of people reach out like, write more, write more. I love reading about the case. Because social media, it's, you know, obviously social media appeals more to like the much younger generation. It's just a fact of life. And so that's when me and George started thinking, well, that is another media platform that we can do. I mean, George has his own publishing company, so why not? It just takes us sitting down and writing it. And so that's what we did. And what we agreed on, though, is that aside from reimbursing ourselves on some travel costs, the rest of the proceeds are going to go in account and go towards a reward fund for the next case that we work. So again, this isn't like us making a profit in any way, because I know that's going to start on Twitter and everything. We're just money off someone's murder. No, the money is to go to travel costs for current and future investigations, and then the rest of it into a reward fund that we'll put up for the next, whatever next case that we work. So please know that by buying the book, you know, you're helping to further all of our work here. And that includes everybody who's on this call and on our page, but also helping the next future victims case that we work. So, and obviously after the events of this spring, we went back and made some amendments to some parts of the book. So that's why we ended up delaying the publishing date.
Somebody just have, how many lived in Lubbock at the time of the murder? We speculate it was about 190,000-ish. It might be a little more, a little less, it was middle of the decade, so there's not like accurate census information for the middle of the decade, but it was pretty close. It was just a few years after the Lubbock tornado, so people were paying attention. I actually did not know this, but Dr. Fujita, who created the Fujita scale, he actually modeled his scale based on the tornado that hit Lubbock, Texas. He actually came to Lubbock, and that's how he was able to come up with his original model, which I thought was kind of cool.
The alley behind the house. Yeah, so there's a post from Mark Holmes. I'm just going to throw his name out there because he is who he is, and he was a friend of Debbie's back in high school. They worked together at McDonald's, and someone dug up a post that he made several years ago about something called Clay Alley, where streakers and flashers maybe would hang out. It's not the alley behind Debbie and Doug's house. I am positive of that. I don't know what alley that is. I don't know where it is. We've not been able to find that location, but I don't find any significance or link to Debbie's case in that post at this point. But if anybody knows more than we do about something called Clay Alley where flashers might hang out, please send us a message so we can run that down, or send it to Lubbock PD.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
it's Vicky.
Hi.
I have my question was about on this web call. How many people lived in Lubbock at that time? Do we have a presence of people who lived here at that time?
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking
That's
for
all
the
right.
total amount, Vicky.
That's okay. I have a reason for my question because the house, when I went to find the house, Jennifer and I were talking back and forth one day, and I decided I was going to go find the house. The house was not where I thought it was.
Okay.
And so I'm, of course, 62 now. And at the time of the murder, I was in my teens.
Sure.
So 12, 13, 14. On 50th Street, it was not a populated area, okay? Behind there, and it's so crazy, you just brought up that alley thing. Behind there was like vacant, but we would go out there and ride motorcycles. And there was a motorcycle track not very far from there to the south. And a lot of kids hung out there.
Okay.
So, you know, back in the day, we'd go, okay, if you were in Lubbock, right behind Pollard Friendly Ford on Loop 289, we'd go out there and we had a couch and we'd all go out there and hang out and just hang out. Okay, so go on to 82nd, there's nothing there during that time. And so as you go down that road, it is not wrong to think that there were people just hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not wrong to think. I just wanted to throw that in because when I really saw where it was, that street was not that wide.
Right.
It was 2 lanes.
Right.
If my memory serves me.
You're correct.
It was paved, but it was not a large, 6 lanes. And I think that was a dirt road. And that's why I asked if anybody on here lived here during that time.
Yeah, I think we have several. If anybody wants to chime in, feel free.
Yeah, a few people have actually in the chat box have said that they actually lived in Lubbock at the time of the murder, which.
Mm-hmm. I mean, most people describe, as you did, Vicky, that area as remote where Debbie and Doug lived. There was a handful of houses around, but scattered. You know, they had a huge empty lot to the west. At least the housing lot, or whatever you want to call it, to the east side of their house was vacant at that time. There was a house to the south across the little alley behind their house, but houses were sparse. And like Melissa can talk to this, even now when we walk around the neighborhood, the houses that are in those spots now have the same footprint as they did back in 75. So we actually, Like we got access to the yard on the south side of the alley across from Debbie and Doug's house. And we looked around, what can you see? I mean, Melissa, I think we could barely see over the fence and see her back door.
Yeah, and I'm short, and and I, it was not, you could barely see it. It wasn't easy to see.
Yeah.
Even even if you were taller, I think you're taller than me, but it wasn't like a straight shot. You couldn't see inside the house in that alley by any means.
And what we were trying to decipher is if any of the neighbors had a direct view to Debbie and Doug's backyard. So
Right.
could have someone had been sitting in their backyard or the second story of a house or something and easily surveilled her back door and backyard and learned their habits and movements. And basically, no, there was a house to the southwest whose garage, if the garage door was up and you were sitting in the garage, you could see Debbie and Doug drive in and out of their carport. But you could not see into their backyard. You couldn't see the back door where Debbie was found at, stuff like that. But I can't completely rule out a neighbor. I mean, a neighbor would know their habits probably, even though they'd only lived there 7 weeks.
Yeah,
But
oh, sorry, Jen.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the other point too, I remember we talked about while we were standing there, is that it seemed unlikely to us at that point, if you're in the alley, to dart across the yard and get to her in a surprise attack. So if she was coming out, you'd have to get through the gate and then get to the yard, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't make sense because you couldn't really see she would even be coming out of the door. So it seemed like there would be a lot more obstacles to get in the way of if you were in the alley and coming from the alley. I don't think that would make much sense.
Jen Amber Tucker asked, how many bathrooms did the house have? If 2, which one were the wet towels found in? Well, there were 2 bathrooms. We believe that they were found in the guest bathroom. That's what we think. There was also mention of a towel possibly being found in the hallway. And so we don't know what to make of that. And so we know they were collected. And so they possibly have those. They may be sitting in a DNA lab right now. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't take that as gospel because there is a conflicting.
Yeah.
There are conflicting reports on where towels were found, and we don't. So the 2 towel thing came from Bob, the stepdad, and he was pretty specific in recalling that to Philip, the journalist. But, and we've checked this, he never, or if he told Philip, he doesn't remember specifically for sure which bathroom Bob observed the 2 towels in. So there's the towel thing. We know there was wet towels found. Police saw them, but unfortunately the stories conflict. And so we don't know what the truth of the matter is with the towels, other than, yes, collected as evidence, hopefully being tested. That would be wonderful. And I'm gonna backtrack just for a second, George, on the neighborhood area. And I totally get that people could have loitered around the empty lots and the south side of that neighborhood, and I'm sure or rode bikes, rode motorcycles, whatever, but they did. But the thing is, there is really, and I've done so much surveillance that I'm like, I hope I never have to do it again. It'll be too soon. There's really no good place to sit back then and watch the back door and backyard of Doug and Debbie's house without being extremely noticeable. There was no good clandestine way to do that we could come up with. And so that's why we strongly believe that whoever murdered her knew the layout of the backyard, knew what doors she would come out of, knew their habits, knew they each had separate cars and that she was home alone and that Doug was not there. We just feel this person had to have a lot of intimate inside knowledge in order to commit this crime, and therefore it narrows our pool very quickly to the circle of people that are closest to them.
Yeah, and Jen, I'll add to that. We're also talking about, we think that there's a good probability that the person knew the timing, knew that she may be coming out that door at a certain time.
Jennifer, do you know the age of the house?
It was built in 1964.
Yeah. And it was built by Doug's parents. So nobody this wasn't a case of mistaken identity, because we've gone through that.
Mhm.
But nobody lived at the house before Doug's parents. So, and
Well,
Doug's
what I'm
mom,
thinking of is
okay.
the trees were probably not as mature at the time. If we have crime scene photos, those trees weren't probably as big.
Yes, that would be correct.
Yeah. Although I think
Um,
the trees were in the front yard. There
yes.
were definitely shrubs in the backyard and grass and a shed. But George, I don't think there was any big trees in the backyard.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah, no, I'm almost certain there wasn't.
No, but the
Um,
trees in the front yard now kind of canopy the house,
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
like window canopy over the, and make it a little.
Yeah, provide shade and protect the
Yeah.
house a little bit from the sun. Yeah. LaDonna asked, did Bob describe the towels as out of place? And this is the thing I'll say. It was 1975. DNA testing didn't even exist then. For whatever reason, he noticed them. Sometimes somebody can tell you something without directly telling you something. It seemed odd to him. And wouldn't it be ironic if through the echoes of time that his one little observation about those towels may have been a direct observation as to who killed his stepdaughter. So the fact that he mentioned it at all tells me that it must have looked at somewhat out of place. We don't know that definitively, but that's the inference I would take.
Was her hair recently that he saw her and dropped her off at the house?
Mhm.
From the time he dropped her off to the house, did it look like she'd taken a shower and redone her hair? She
Jennifer
was
and
a
I have-
person you could tell
Jennifer-
she did her hair.
Yeah, Jennifer and I have gone over those pictures. Jen, you're more accustomed to talking about longer girls' hair than I am. So I mean, what does it look like to you?
Her hair was definitely done. You can tell it had been styled at some point that night. Doug's best recollection is that, I mean, pretty much anytime she would go out in public, she would wash and dry her hair. And he said she usually wore it pretty straight, like in her senior photo with the red, it's not a dress, but whatever you wear for your graduation photos.
That's her gown.
Her gown.
graduation
Thank you, gown. He said she wore her hair like that most of the time. But he said, yeah, she'd wash it, but she'd have to blow dry it and style it to get it to look that way. And it would take time. I mean, her hair was very long. And
Did the stepfather think that she might have taken a shower?
I mean, it's a possibility that can't be ruled out, but talking with Doug, and I really respect his memory on this part, is like, he says, well, even if she got home at 8:30 and left at 9:20, 9:30, he's like, it would have taken her longer to get ready. It would have
That's
taken
what
her
I'm
longer.
thinking. That's what I'm kind of going towards. She
Yeah.
styled her hair. That was something that took a long time.
He said she would have done that to go out to dinner for her stepdad's birthday. She wouldn't have done that afterwards when she's coming back to do
It
inventory.
doesn't seem likely.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
and another thing, Vicky, too, is that for Bob to have noticed it, I mean, think about it like this. If a person lives in a house and they get murdered there, and you walked into the house and you saw a couple of towels piled up in the master bathroom, where you would assume that the owner of the house would take a shower or bath, you probably wouldn't notice that. But if you saw some towels that were stacked up possibly in the guest bathroom or the hallway leading out, you might notice that more. It might enter into your thought process. Did the person who killed so-and-so, did they go into the guest bathroom and clean up?
Certainly.
yeah.
I still kind of find it odd that Paul was the one that asked to go take a shower at their house. I mean, they were exes and everything. I mean, if I was to ask my husband right now if my ex could come over and take a shower, it'd be a definite no. And that's
It wouldn't be.
Hey, listen, I have asked that question because I had never heard of anything like this before. I have asked every person I know that question, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm batting 0 for 0. I have not found a single human being. Actually, I take that back. I did have one, her husband, let's see, or her boyfriend, he had been friends with her brother. And so when they split up, her brother and him were friends. They started dating, they stopped. Well, he still came over when he was a teenager to hang out with her brother. So obviously he had taken a shower there. That's it.
Yeah.
See, that's just crazy to me.
It's-
Yeah, it is to me too. I mean, and then you have towels in the house after a murder. A little odd.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, and I mean, and there are multiple, people of interest in this who would have known the house, it's very plausible that they could have gone in and cleaned themselves up. And there's more than one. I mean, I'll tell you that.
Oh,
right
yeah.
now.
Let's not forget, I mean, we're not pointing the finger at anybody. It's people that do things that make us alert to them, but we're still puzzled on Debbie's next youngest sister, Pam. We put out that request for help, and a lot of you really dug and did a ton of research, but unfortunately nobody's come up with anything more in terms of an obituary, death certificate, any proof that she actually passed away. Putting that aside, nobody can figure out where she was the night of the murder. And quite frankly, Pam would have been super comfortable going in the house and taking a shower. She would have known Doug's schedule. She would have known Doug wasn't coming back till later on that night. No one's going to show up. And again, I'm not pointing the finger at all. I'm just saying it's a person who needs to be vetted and we need to eliminate, but we've been unable to.
Yeah, the question has to be asked.
Yes.
There's no harm in asking the question. I mean, if you gave me, any amount of money that mattered to me that I would have to bet at a casino, which again, you guys all know I was in Vegas and I didn't bet a dime. So you know how much I don't like that. I wouldn't bet on Pam even being involved in any way, shape, or form, but we still got to ask the question.
Yeah. Hey, George, someone asked to see the 1975 imagery. Mind if I pull it up real quick?
No, I don't. Yeah, hold up.
Okay, so can you guys all see that?
Yep.
Hopefully, maybe.
Yeah, see how little that street is?
Yeah. So can you guys see my cursor?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
this is 82nd, and back then it was only 2 lanes, 1 lane in either direction. And the gentleman who amazingly went to the city archives and got us this said the photo or scan or whatever it was actually a much larger piece of map. But he said this car here was the only car on 82nd Street, even in that bigger piece of map. But you can see this wide open area to the west and wide open area to the east of their home.
They didn't start wanting that until the 80s.
Probably not. Yeah.
And Jen, have we mentioned this before? And if we did, I apologize. There's a neighbor who lived not too far from Debbie's house. And this is going back to those contemporaneous reports. This woman is what, Jennifer, in her 90s now?
93.
93. We talked to her and her account matches her police report from from 47 years ago. She said she heard a wreck, or what she thought sounded like a wreck, and it may have nothing to do with the murder at all. We don't know. She just said she heard a noise that night that sounded like a wreck to her. And as she's talking to Jennifer, and she's 93 years old, she goes, I think I heard a wreck that night.
Yeah. But I said, do you remember what time of night you heard it? And she said, no. And so I said, can you remember if the sun was still up? Was it still daylight or was it dark? And she said it was daylight because I wouldn't have been out in my backyard after dark. So assuming her recollection is correct, because it actually matches up perfectly with her original statement, probably has nothing to do at all with Debbie's murder, but it was a very interesting little case study.
Yeah, just seeing this map reminded me of it.
Yeah, but yeah, so you guys can see that there's only a handful of houses, and really none of them had any good vantage point to surveil Debbie coming and going or Doug coming and going from their home.
So Jennifer, when I told you about the strip, it's still close.
Okay.
It's still close to there. It's just, I had her house being on the outside of I-27, on the other side,
Okay.
instead of inside. And so once I saw that, there would not have been that much traffic there because the road going to the strip was just like probably 4 lanes. And it was not an interstate like road back then.
Right.
It was a big highway, but it wasn't like it is now.
Okay.
But people would go there and buy alcohol. That was the only
Yeah,
place to buy
that's right.
alcohol in like 10 or 15 counties.
That's true. I've heard that. And I've heard there was a convenience store down 82nd to the east within like a mile or so of Doug and Debbie's house.
Correct. It's
relevant.
very small.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
had just started kind of building out there.
Okay.
I'm close to there. My house was built in 1965,
Okay. Yeah.
but I'm inside the loop, and this is about probably 4 or 5 miles from my house.
Okay. Yeah, you're right in that same time frame.
Yes.
I think Michelle has her hand up again. I think she had it up and took it down and put it back
I'm
up.
sorry.
Sorry, I just to build off what we're talking about now with the like the towels and everything. I still struggle a little bit with the timeline. I think, you know, she said she was going to watch a movie. She said she had to do her hair. She ate a peach. She had something to drink. She had clean clothes on. She gathered all of her things. I just don't think there was nearly enough time. And for the mom to come in and look at the wedding dress, it just seems like there's just something really, really off with the time. And so then I think, you know, about the phone ringing and I don't know, just all these crazy thoughts, but I just really struggle with that because I just don't think there was enough time. So like, what did she do or what didn't she do? And it sounds like with the towels, she did everything. She did possibly do her hair and she probably did watch TV and, you know, any thoughts on that you can share? Is the timeline solid? Is it documented somewhere or anything you can share?
Well, we know that she was dropped off around 8:30. We don't know that the mom went in the house. We believe that the mom actually went in the house when they came to pick her up. That she didn't go in with her. Actually, we're pretty sure about that because there's actually a report of Bob and Joyce actually watching her go into the house, and they made sure the door was shut before they left. We also know that there was a movie playing on ABC that night called The Odd Couple, starring Walter Matthau and Walter Matthau and
Oh my
Jack
gosh.
Lemmon.
Before, yeah.
Jack Lemmon.
Yeah.
That movie got over at 9:30 that night, and that's the channel that the TV was turned to when the police checked it. So the movie ended at 9:30, but as everybody on here remembers, and I think we talked about it before, you know, back in those days, the movie would actually end around 9:20, and then they would do the preview of what the next Sunday movie was going to be and all the stuff that was going to come up. So there was like a very long commercial at the end. So she could have feasibly been walking out that door around 9:20. So we're looking at, honestly, she could have been murdered in less than 50 minutes after her parents dropped her off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would make more sense if Joyce went in before, because I'm thinking at nighttime, Joyce was driving, right?
Yes.
For her to just whip into the carport to feel confident that she would have enough room to get out of the driver's side door and Debbie would have enough room to get outside of that side of the car. I don't know what kind of car it was, but because the other question or challenge that I think about is how close her car was parked to the house. And I know, Jen, you had mentioned before that they had to park both cars in the carport and was probably left there from the day before. I don't know if I'm just thinking of chivalry or whatever, but she would have had to literally go all the way around to the back quarter of the car at any point to get into her car. And then she would have to worry about hitting the house with the door. I just think that's a little odd. Especially if they were talking about possibly buying a new car and trading it in. I don't know, maybe that's just, you know, what I'm thinking by today's standards of trade-ins, but is there any possibility that the car was moved at any point? Because it also looks like it was kind of out into, like out past the edge of the carport a little bit as well. Like there was a lot of room. If you're gonna park that close to the house, I don't know why she was that far back, because she obviously then didn't care about room. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I think at this point it would be difficult just because we don't know everybody has peculiar like parking habits. Some people park a little like, in my garage, sometimes I park a little bit further up than anybody else who's driving at my house. You know what I mean? When I park in the garage. So I don't know. I don't know if we could, I don't even know. Jennifer, is there any way we could even prove that at this point?
So when we were at the house in March, remember, Melissa, that when we first got there, we felt the same way as you, Michelle. We're like, man, her car was parked pretty close to the house. And this is a tiny carport. And so we pulled my car in first, which doesn't compare at all, but it's like a vehicle, right?
Right.
And then we started studying the photos, and then we measured the width of the carport. And actually the carport is much wider than it looks. There's actually more width than it feels. And studying a couple of the photos that I've posted with the drag marks and stuff the next day, I mean, we don't know the exact measurement of how far the car was from the house, but we ended up deciding it was actually parked a little farther away from the wall of the house than we originally thought. And that she actually did have a decent amount of room to open her car door. But you're right, we do think the back end of her car hung over the edge of the carport, over the gravel, I guess you could say. But it was a long car.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we drove kind of boats back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, it was a Plymouth Duster. So actually, George, I think your mom's car was the closest in length.
Yes.
Yeah, we pulled it. I forgot about that. And it was,
Mhm.
you're right. We were surprised by how much space you actually did have to open the door and all that stuff. So
Right.
the photos may be a little deceiving, I guess. Maybe
Yeah.
it deceived us, and we were sitting right there in the carport. So
Yeah, it felt much bigger because then we thought that there wasn't enough space for the attack maybe to happen there, but there was a lot more room. Like I couldn't believe, I was like, are we measuring this right? It just, because I felt like it was much smaller, but really it was much larger. And when you opened up George's mom's door, she had room to get out and close it. And so, for me, I never pull up too far because I always think I'm going to hit something. So I tend to not pull up as fast, but I also think if Doug pulls next, she left room for him to walk through, which is what
The front.
I think did was that he gets out of his car and walks in front of her car to the door. So she doesn't pull all the way up and leaves her back end out so that he has room to cross, is my take.
Yeah, that was our take on it.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you a question, both of you. Back to Paul, I'm not calling him out or anything, but do we know if he had ever showered there before? Did Doug say anything about that?
Yes, he had showered there in the past.
See, that bugs me. That really bugs me.
Bugs us too.
I can tell George is shaking his head like, yep,
Wait
can't
till
say
you
nothing.
read it.
Okay, now it's not that unusual for people during those times. I mean, we had a large group of friends, and everybody dated everybody. I don't find that unusual.
Okay. And you're not the first one to say that either. There's been several others that were like, no, I wouldn't have found that out of the ordinary.
I mean, all my high school friends, we probably dated sometime or another, and I've been to their homes. As they were, I've gone to Louisiana and stayed with friends that I knew in high school, and I dated them. They married somebody else that was one of my friends. It wasn't that unusual. That's not unusual to me.
Okay. No, that's good insight.
Yeah, no, duly noted. And also I'll say this, Paul had been friends with Doug years before he dated Debbie. So he had been to that house many times just because Doug grew up there.
Yeah.
And so him taking a shower there wouldn't be unusual under certain circumstances, in my opinion.
Oh my
I know
gosh.
this isn't an IDTV movie, but did they happen to take photographs at the funeral?
We've never come across any that I'm aware of.
I was told a police officer, at least one, was there in attendance, but I don't know if law enforcement or anybody else took photos. We don't have any, George. Not that I know of.
Yeah, we don't have any.
No.
They did.
Um,
Obviously, they were watching, because that was a very useful tactic, especially back in 1975. You know, you want to have officers at the funeral observing what's going on.
And as young as she was, it would have been a big funeral.
They said the place was packed.
yeah.
They said it was packed because she was
Wall to
so
wall.
young, you know, just out of high school and all that. Everybody was there.
Yeah. It was packed from our understanding. I'm going back a little bit, I think. Did Doug, Paul, and Lex all graduate from Monterey, and was it 1974? Paul graduated from Coronado, 1974, same high school as Debbie. Doug and Lex went to Monterey, correct?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think Doug was 1973. I think he was
Yeah.
2 years ahead of Debbie. And I think Lex was 1974. So they did not all go to the same high school, no. Okay. I've lost track of where I'm at on questions here. Okay, I'm puzzled about Pam. You were puzzled about Pam too. Could a medical examiner look back at records for Pam's death? From what we were told, Pam died in the hospital last September as a result of complications from COVID. Most likely she didn't, if that's the case and she had an attending doctor, most likely she did not have an autopsy. So she would most likely not have gone to the medical examiner or coroner. The attending doctor would have just signed off on her death certificate. Death certificates are not public. Sometimes you can find them through Ancestry. Obviously, we can't find hers. It's probably too recent anyways. But the curious thing to us, as we've said before, is that there's zero obituary. And we know that there were tensions between her and some of her family members, but she did have 2 daughters and an ex-husband. And we just find it a little bit strange that none of them would write some sort of obituary for her. This is, I think, literally the first case through Ancestry and other resources I have that I've not been able to find an obituary for someone that I was told died. So I'm not into conspiracy theories. I don't think she ran off to Mexico or is hiding or anything like that. We just want to settle that topic, eliminate her, and move on.
What was her name?
Pamela Lynn Brooks was her name at death. Or
And
Pamela.
Jen, I'll add to that. I've been a journalist for many years, and finding people's obituaries, I do it. I mean, I've done it every single week. I mean, it's like second nature, and I've never
easy
that I can ever remember in my entire, like when you called me and told me that you couldn't find her obituary, I'm like, come on, Jennifer, you're better than this. This is going to be simple. 5 hours later, I was down the wormhole and I'm like, where is this obituary?
Yeah. We checked the websites of all the funeral homes in and around North Richland Hills, which is the city listed as her last address. I don't know for sure that's her last address, but that area of Fort Worth, just in case, like it was on their website somehow, but not searchable through Google. Couldn't find it. My husband was actually, his headquarters is in Dallas, Fort Worth. I gave him, the last time he was down there, I gave him her last known address. He went there, but it's a gated apartment complex. I told him, don't you dare jump the fence or anything illegal, like follow somebody in through the gated fence or anything like that to go knock on her door. So we have pursued trying to go to her residence, and at this point, this is beyond our skills. You know, this is where police need to step in and figure out what's actually going on. You know, me and George don't.
And this was her sister?
This was her sister. This is actually Debbie's full-blooded sister that was just a couple of years younger than her.
Yeah.
Younger.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
She
where
was-
did she graduate from high school?
It was not from the Lubbock area. She moved away. The family
Gainesville.
moved away after the murder.
She graduated
she-
from a high school and she didn't graduate, actually. She attended a high school in Gainesville. And based on our research, she at least completed her junior year. She attended her senior year. I cannot find a graduation record for her, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But she got pregnant her senior year and got married later that year. So it's possible that she dropped out her senior year in order to have the baby. Don't know. Would love if somebody who knows this would clear this up.
You know
But
where she went to junior high school?
I believe it was Roosevelt in Lubbock while they were
Hmm.
the couple years that they were in Lubbock.
And that would have been, she'd have been a couple of years, so she would have been my age, 62.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That'd be about right.
Yep.
Yeah, she was about 15 when Debbie died. So
She was born in 1960, so yeah, she was 61 when she passed away. Paul's time card, yes, reflects he clocked out at 8:43 p.m. That's validated. It's in writing. We have a copy.
mhm.
How
do.
many days were they at the lake? We don't know. We only know that they went to the lake the day before the murder. We still don't have a full list for sure of everybody that was hanging out with them at the lake. But the 5 that we know of, we've put out there publicly, and we've asked, if anybody else knows of others that were in attendance or hanging out on their boat or whatever, to let us know.
I think we've talked to everybody that we know of that was out there that day.
We have, yeah.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Well,
Very
except
good.
for one that we speculate might have been out there.
True. That's true. Okay, Ava, sorry. Just joined the group after finishing the podcast. If I missed it, I apologize. Was there a picture of what the knife looked like? Yes. If you go in our Facebook group towards the top end, click on photos, you'll find a couple photos of the type of knife that our knife expert thinks was used. And it's a dagger style with a blade that does not retract, so not like a switchblade. And it was double-edged, so sharpened on both sides of the blade, which is not found. I think I saw a question earlier about hunting or fishing knives. They don't have a double-edged blade. My husband does both a lot, and I've learned more about knives than I ever wanted to know in my life through this case, but I've looked at all his knives and my father-in-law's knives, and none of them have a double-edged blade. So it was not a hunting or fishing knife that was used. Here.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I thought that, and I could be having a fuzzy memory, but I thought that her sister was in the car, and maybe she got her memory wrong, but I thought there was like an interview or a podcast or something with her younger sister who was in the car, and her sister stayed in the car after dinner because she was mad because she wasn't allowed to spend the night that night.
Mhm. That's correct. She stayed in the car. She wanted to stay the night, according to her. I always caution people, though, especially with someone that was that young. She was 8 years old. So
So she was 8. So
was
this is
8.
a different sister.
Yes.
Yeah, this was a different sister. This was her
Okay.
half sister. Yeah, her
Okay.
half sister was in the car with her. She went to dinner with him that night, and then the half sister would often stay the night, but it was a school night, so we theorized that probably Joyce said, "Hey, you can't stay tonight," so she had to stay in the car, and she was mad.
I thought it was summer.
We don't theorize. Joyce told that to Philip. It's in
Oh,
his
that's right. Yeah,
notes.
we
Joyce-
theorized it before Philip told us, though.
But it's in Philip's notes that Joyce said that it was a school night, so that's why the youngest didn't stay.
I
And
thought it
she
was summer.
probably knew- She
No,
probably
no,
knows the end of
August 24th, most schools were already back in session.
Oh, that's right. It's Texas.
Plus, her mom probably knew Debbie was planning to return to the Pizza Inn late that night, so you're not going to take your 8-year-old sister out at midnight or whatever to a pizza place and all that. So
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
So I'm sorry, I was getting the sisters confused.
yeah, there's 2.
Okay, sorry about that.
Pam, the next closest to Debbie, who was 14, 15 at the time of the murder, her name never comes up. I mean, it just never does. It's bizarre. I don't know that she was ever questioned and not as a suspect. I just mean as a witness, or like she would, out of the sisters, she should know who Debbie's friends are. They shared a bedroom at the time, or before Debbie got married, they were sharing they lived together. She would know best who Debbie's friends were, who she interacted with, what her habits were, stuff like that. And it doesn't seem like she was ever asked any of those questions. So someone asked if there was bruises on Debbie's body from the hilt of the knife. Not that I can tell. And the hilt of the knife, I don't have a knife right here, but the hilt of the knife is the part that protects your hand from sliding down the blade. So in some stabbing cases, I've seen some when I've worked with a medical examiner in the past, the knife is plunged so hard into the victim that the hilt itself makes a bruise around the knife injuries on the victim's skin. I don't see any evidence of that in Debbie's wounds. So not from now, and keep in mind, the autopsy photos we have are from 1975 and they're not great. But I don't see any evidence of hilt wounds, no. Oh my gosh, George, I might actually be at the end of the question. Okay, near the other end of 82nd at University was a nightclub called Bigger Than Dallas or Coldwater Company. Okay. I don't know I'm not sure what to do with that.
What's the question about Bigger in Dallas?
Someone just, I don't know who, but near the end of 82nd at University was a nightclub called either Bigger Than Dallas or Coldwater Company. Does that ring any bells for you?
It wasn't on 82nd. It was on Loop 289 and University Avenue. It was where the Target is? There by the Loop. It was directly across the street from there.
Okay.
So it wasn't on 82nd.
Okay, just giving you an idea of layout.
I think the first building built at 82nd and University, which is right down the street, was the Walgreens that's sitting there now.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Definitely wasn't much in that area.
No. Like that movie theater wasn't there. My bank wasn't there.
Okay.
And those were built. Now, they had started building houses. It was an up and coming community. But we'd have to look at the records, the housing records to see exactly when. I would say a lot of those houses were built in the late 70s.
That seems about right. I mean, based on that one map we have from 75 is pretty sparse.
Right. I would say more around 77, 78, 79.
Yeah.
And there were some big clubs out there. I mean, they're on the Circle we talked about the last time. There was the Villa Club was there. No, the Villa Club was on 50th. I'm not thinking of the right one, but there was a big club there on that Circle.
Okay.
That we all went and danced at. But it doesn't sound like they were dancers.
From what we can piece together and talking to Doug, they would go to the lake a lot. I mean, that was a big hangout for a lot of people. Go to a local pool, maybe. Doug was on a bowling team, and Debbie would often tag along to the bowling alley. He golfed with some of his friends. I don't know if she would tag along on that, but you know, a lot of the evenings that he was managing the Pizza Inn, she would just go up there and hang out at the Pizza Inn.
Yeah.
Not to say they didn't go dancing, but it doesn't seem like it was in their regular routine.
Well, he was probably working on a Friday or a Saturday
Yeah.
night.
I mean, he
Yeah.
worked a lot from what we could tell.
There's a question that Michelle asked a few minutes ago about how many months did Debbie work at McDonald's after Doug left to work at Pizza Inn. We're not really sure exactly how many, but it was not very long, if at all. They may have quit. I mean, Jen, do you have more insight on that?
The only thing that comes to mind, George, is that letter that she wrote him, which was the fall of 1974 on the back
Yes.
of her photo, remember? And I think in
Mhm.
that letter she wrote, which we have the whole transcript of that, I guess you call it, in the book. She wrote, it's this cute love letter basically that she wrote on the back of one of her senior photos. And I think she mentioned that Doug had left to go to another job, right? Because she said,
Yes.
now when I go to work, I miss you, or something like that.
He had gone to Lawton, Oklahoma to do some training.
That's what it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. So, but I do think he left McDonald's before she did, and then it would have been the spring of 75, right?
Yes.
And we know that she quit in May of 1975, but I think he was already at the Pizza Inn by then. So, okay, to answer that question, I would estimate a couple months, maybe 2 to 4 months, that she remained at McDonald's while he worked elsewhere.
Yeah.
I remember them saying somewhere, I think you guys had mentioned that they were trying to sync their schedules so that she wouldn't be alone and that she could also spend time with him at the Pizza Inn. That's interesting. I have to.
He did say that in his interview with, I think, George. That's when he went to his house. But
Mhm.
that was at the very beginning of us getting involved in this case. And when we backtracked the records from McDonald's, basically Doug's memory was flawed on that.
Yeah.
That might have occurred, that overlap or that scheduling thing might have occurred for a couple weeks, but she was not working at McDonald's anymore by the time they got married, and she did not work that summer. So
Yeah, because the night of that, when Debbie was supposed to go back to the Pizza Inn that night,
yeah,
when Paul went on his date with Tina, he didn't want to go to the Pizza Inn. So it's not like he wanted to see Debbie. He decided to go to McDonald's. We know Debbie wouldn't have been at McDonald's. You guys thought anything about that? Like anything weird come to mind with that?
Well, I mean, the thing about it is he was going on a date with Tina. Tina wanted to go to the Pizza Inn and he didn't want to go there. He wanted to go to McDonald's, and it was weird to her because she said, you know, I knew people at Pizza Inn. I didn't know anybody at McDonald's, but he did. And she thought it was odd that he wouldn't take her over there, especially since they'd only got first couple of dates. I mean, if you're going on a guy should do what you want, at least on the first couple of dates, right? So, so she thought it was odd. It also stood out to her, which always, you know, from that long ago, any detail like that stands out, you know, we like to put some thought into that as to why.
That's a good point, because I think that as on a date, that the Pizza Inn probably would have been a little bit more exciting than McDonald's.
Right.
So that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
and
And
Tina was kind of, I think Melissa was about to say this and I stepped on her, sorry. But Tina was working at Pizza Inn that summer. So for her, it would have been a natural place to go because she knew the other people that would hang out there and the coworkers, whereas at McDonald's, she didn't know anybody that worked at McDonald's, according to her. Sorry,
And
Melissa.
Jen, did she not look indignant when we asked the question about, I mean, she looked indignant when we talked about it. I mean,
Yeah. Make what you want of it, this report, so.
yeah. Somebody asked, how many nights did Doug, Paul, and Lex bowl? We don't know how many nights they bowled. We do know that they all bowled together from time to time, though. Len is Terry, Doug's best man at his wedding. He told us that. So
yeah. I was just going to go back to the McDonald's Pizza Inn thing too. One of the things, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember I thought we heard somewhere that you could be at McDonald's and could see Pizza Inn parking lot. Is that correct? Or you drive by Pizza Hut to get to McDonald's and it's right there. So they had a path Pizza Inn.
Yeah,
to get to
it's a little bit of,
McDonald's.
it's a little bit apart. Actually, Vicky, you probably know this better than any
Yeah,
of us.
you could probably see the Pizza Inn from the McDonald's.
Can you? Okay. So
But
it was
50th.
It's not a Pizza Inn anymore.
right,
No.
right. But it was interesting that she had thought that they were going to go there and then the plans got changed. And so they had to purposely drive by where she thought they were going to go, went to McDonald's and yet sat at McDonald's and did nothing. But I thought they could see the parking lot or see Pizza Inn.
Yes, you would be able to see Pizza Inn.
Yeah, we need to double check that. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I never thought about that before, having to drive past the Pizza Inn to get to the McDonald's.
I thought of that, but I didn't know they were within viewing range of each other.
Yeah. Yes, I
thought
think
they
you
were-
told me that, Jen.
It was a new McDonald's.
Okay.
It was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
Maybe you
It
told
was a
me.
big deal. We had been introduced to the Big Mac.
That's right.
All
I
right.
believe it was the McDonald's came out, I would say, in 74 or 75.
Really?
Probably
And so
70.
you could, Vicky, because we went to the Pizza Inn driveway and it's not very big and it was very dark when Jen and I went there. We wanted to see. And I think we asked like, where's the McDonald's? Because we brought up the whole thing that the Tina said it was just odd that they just sat there.
You know what? I'm gonna have to look. I'm not sure that's okay. So now there's another McDonald's. It's on the corner of I-27 and 50th Street. I'm not sure.
I know we have
I'm gonna have to go drive over there and look.
Yeah, I know we've got
Because now you've got my interest peaked. I guess I could go get in the car. I'm only 2 miles from it.
You don't
Go get a Big Mac. I heard they're great.
They are- well, it was a big thing. And see, that was the first McDonald's in Lubbock, I believe. Let me look at something. Let me Google.
Well, Michelle says it was torn down. What was torn down? The McDonald's? Michelle?
The McDonald's was torn down. The McDonald's that's on 50th Street now is not the McDonald's that was there back then.
Got it. Thank you.
I know we've got the cross streets of that McDonald's from back then, and it was 50th. I just can't remember the cross street right now. Pizza Inn was 50th and L. And the
Yes.
McDonald's was down to the west somewhere on 50th also, but I just can't remember the cross street, but I'll have to look it up.
People are saying
But
Avenue.
it
Waker?
could have been
Okay.
M.
50 and Avenue T, Teresa says. Okay.
G.
Okay.
That would have been to the east.
So no parking lot, Vicky, huh? Okay.
I'm not thinking so.
Okay.
You know, let me see if it's the first McDonald's.
It could be me just thinking that. I thought for some reason they had to pass Pizza Inn to get to the McDonald's and it was just odd. I think that's true.
It's a possibility, yeah.
Okay.
That would actually make sense.
Okay.
Okay, while she researches that, I'm going to answer. So Becky said, have you ever been able to talk personally to Paul or Lex?
Okay, here it is. Lubbock's first McDonald's to close to rebuild. For people in Lubbock, their love affair with the Big Mac began in 1968 when McDonald's built its first store at 50th Street and Avenue T.
Okay.
So
T
that
to
was T.
So it's still
That's a long way from L.
It's a few blocks from L, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
LMNOPQRST. Now that's the first McDonald's.
And that I'm almost positive
Might have been the second McDonald's. So let's see. I'm gonna go get in the car and drive there. Now you got me going crazy here.
I'm gonna answer Becky's question in the meantime.
Okay.
Okay, so have you ever been able to talk personally to Paul or Lex? If not, what were the roadblocks? Paul, yes. Me and Georgia both talked to Paul. Lex, no. Lex was literally the first person I ever called in this case, aside from Debbie's family members, because he was a witness to the crime scene. Him and Paul. And I really wanted to hear his recollections on what he could remember about that night, the lighting, the body position, whatever he'd tell me. The phone number I thought was his was someone who claimed to be his wife. And I'm saying it that way because I can't prove that it was his wife that answered the phone, but she told me she was his wife, whatever. And I explained why I was calling. She told me that he was really traumatized from the whole experience and don't expect to call back. But she was cordial. And I said, okay, fine, here's my contact information. And then of course I never heard anything. So then I texted her and I said, listen, I just have a couple questions. It's just about his recollections of the crime scene. This is my specialty. I'm just trying to get as much information as possible. Okay, email me your questions. I'll send them to him. And so I did, and I never got a response. So I tried to follow up and I said, would it be possible to just get his direct email address, because I never got a response. And she's like, well, and then it escalated on her end. And she said, if he didn't respond to you, then he has no interest in talking to you. Leave us alone, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, well, we're just trying to help find who killed his friend. I mean, we know that he was friends with Debbie and her husband, Doug, and we're just trying to figure out who killed her. I don't understand what the issue is with answering a couple of simple questions. And then it got really belligerent, and I'll leave it at that on her end. And then George tried, and
yeah, that's
not have
funny
any more
because
success.
then I had to jump in and be like the good cop, like, gee, what did Jennifer do to offend you? That was so awful. Please tell me. And of course, she started texting me that, well, I say she, it could have been a he. We don't know
who's
who
texting. Yeah.
We refer to this person as the texter in our book, but the texter did send me one message that did kind of blow us away.
And
you know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah. And that was the end of that. And
there was one message that I was like, it floored me.
There's sometimes words that people use that are like, me and George loosely study like forensic linguistics and how to analyze people's words that they choose and the way that they put a sentence together. And there's a couple things that this person said, again, we don't know who's actually texting us, that would just kind of caught our attention, but that was last October. And that was the end of it. Actually, I'll just tell you guys, like, I was in Rhode Island. I think where was I, George? Rhode Island, I think.
No, you were in Connecticut.
Or Connecticut for a wedding. Thank you. I know I was on the East Coast for a wedding. And I looked at the map and I thought, well, it's only 4 hours to Lex's house. And we usually have good success knocking on people's doors. And I thought, maybe I'll just rent a car and drive out there for a day. But I'm actually thankful that this whole texting thing happened the day and two before that, because I don't know what would happen if I actually went out there, but I'm really glad I didn't.
I couldn't believe it. Like, I was as cordial, and we literally have put the entire text message chain in a chapter just so you guys can read it, so that you can see that we were not in any way rude to this person or inappropriate. And then you'll see the responses from this person, and they're just unbelievable. And one of them will stand out to you.
Yeah, it was very unexpected. But take it again. We just report the facts and what
that's all we do.
And you guys can interpret it how you want. Okay, do we have any more? Okay, McDonald's. More McDonald's. Okay, what was the injuries to her ear? I know it's been reported that most of Debbie's right ear was sliced off and nearly detached. We have very clear autopsy photos of both of her ears, and there does not appear to be any detachment of either ear. So I don't know where that came from or how that got interpreted. There's also no wording in the autopsy report about an ear being nearly detached. So as far as I can tell from my past expertise on looking at autopsy reports and photos, I don't see any injury to either ear on Debbie. She does have some scalp injuries based on wording in the autopsy report, 2 slices to the back and the back right of her scalp, but there's nothing about her ear, and there's very clear photos of her ears, and they are intact.
Yeah, Jen, you and I we were on the phone one day, literally just looking at those pictures over and over and over again to make sure we didn't miss anything.
Yeah, trying to decipher them, but it's clear. unfortunately, we just, those are things that we can't share. I just feel like it would be really wrong towards Debbie, the victim, to share any type of photos of her after death. I don't think that's appropriate. So I hope you guys will trust us in our interpretation and what we verbally convey to you guys. But and the autopsy photos they're just gruesome, and so are the crime scene photos. There's just no other way to put it. It's just completely not appropriate to share. But although the
Yeah.
photos are not great quality, both of her ears
Okay.
are very much
On
included.
a more positive note, I am at the McDonald's. Okay? I am at Avenue T and 50th Street. Now tell me the address of the Pizza Inn.
It's 50th and L, like Lima.
Okay. No, because L, this is T, okay?
Yep.
I've got to go at least 2 miles to get
Okay.
to L, I believe.
Okay.
I'm fixing to find out because now, wait a minute. Yeah, this is S.
So you guys,
So
this is
L
the
is
beauty
going
of
to be on the
crowdsourcing.
other side. L is going to be on the other side. No, it's at least 2 miles.
Okay.
So you would
Okay.
not be able to see, excuse me, because
Okay.
it's a pawn shop now. There's no way you could see the McDonald's.
Okay, but you would pass it.
If you were coming from Debbie's house,
No, from South. Oh, I don't have the address. South Lubbock. So actually farther south than Debbie's house.
Okay.
I think you would.
Yeah.
no,
Vicky,
because
you
you
get,
would have come up. Hold on, here's P. It's inside. Yes, you would pass the Pizza Hut going to the McDonald's. If you were coming from Debbie's house and you went right up that street that was right by her house,
okay. Yeah.
you would go up that road and then you turn left. And that down there, you see that red light? That's the road you would have come down. Then you would have come here. This is the Pizza Inn.
Yep.
Okay, but you cannot see, you can't see the McDonald's. Now, it is possible that a lot of these businesses weren't here and you might have could have eyeballed it, but I don't think you could have seen it.
No.
So I'm not gonna
unless
give.
you actually drove by it.
I'm obviously
Well,
not
it wouldn't
gonna
have
give out-
mattered if you passed it anyway. I mean, if you passed it, you would know who was there and who wasn't,
Yeah.
if you passed it on the way there.
Correct.
Right.
You
That's
could have deliberately done that.
correct. I'm just thinking you can see who's in the parking lot cars and who's not, right? If you passed it.
Yes.
Vicky,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Vicky, you get an A star and like 6 kudos for getting your car and driving. to
Thank you. Well, I was thinking with that
cheers to
McDonald's,
you, my
see,
friend.
if I look, see that was a Taco Bell. Okay, see that little orange building? So I was thinking that was the McDonald's and you could see it.
Got
Okay,
it.
but
Okay.
thinking, no, that's not possible. Are you
Okay.
following? I had to get out and actually see it. Sometimes you just have to lay eyes upon something.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Vicky. That was
Very
wonderful.
well. Now I'm going to put my phone back down because
Okay, be safe.
I don't want to drive and be
Yeah.
holding the phone at the same time.
I just love this group. I mean, how
Yeah, I know.
unexpected was that?
That's literally crowdsourcing right there, where someone local can jump in a car and go look at something for you that we can't do.
That's
I
exactly
have-
right.
Okay,
I have a
so
question. I have a question. Was there anything that came out and about what one of the sisters said that she almost got taken? I mean, I know they moved around a lot, but when that was brought up that somebody tried to take her, I've asked on our post if anybody had ever seen any papers or anything like that of a girl being, somebody trying to abduct her.
I can't confirm any of that, and I don't even want to get into it. Well, I appreciate you asking the question, but I can't find any confirmation of that, any police reports, nothing. And if that happened, then an 8-year-old miraculously avoided being kidnapped twice. and it wasn't reported to police, and there's nothing in the newspapers. And even if there is, I can't find any link between that and Debbie's case. I
Okay.
guarantee Debbie's killer did not go and try kidnap her younger sister within weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's absurd. I mean,
Absurd.
this person killed her 18-year-old sister and then somehow wasn't able to kidnap the 8-year-old or kill
Exactly.
them. I mean,
Right.
it's
Yes.
just defies all logic.
Yeah. Yes, the 8-year-old has mentioned that Debbie's ear was basically severed at the funeral. Again, we have the autopsy photos of her ears. They look perfectly intact. So I don't have any further answer on the ear thing. Pam, so Pam's maiden name was Pamela Agnew, same as Debbie's maiden name. At death, Pam's name was Pamela Lynn. Lynn is the middle name, Pamela Lynn Brooks. It's like pouring rain here. I don't know if you guys can hear it on my metal roof, but it's really
I
loud.
wish it was pouring rain here. It hasn't rained here in a month.
I need it too.
Yeah.
Kansas is dry.
We're like in a tinderbox. It's crazy. Okay. Michelle, what Bob mentioned. Oh, in the transcript from the Henry Lee Lucas case, that's right. He mentioned.
Hey,
that-
I've changed my mind, guys. If I was leaving Debbie's house, I'm thinking about this as a kid. If I was leaving Debbie's house, I probably wouldn't have gone to the highway. I probably would have come down University.
Hold on. Hey, Vicky, hold on. You're not leaving
Okay.
Debbie's house. You would be leaving Tina's house.
And where did Tina live?
Well, I'm not gonna give out. the
Oh, I got
specific
you.
address,
I
but
got you.
She lived way farther south than Debbie.
No, but they were at the
Did it-
restaurant, right, Jen? So they left from the restaurant and then went to McDonald's, or no?
No.
No,
He went to pick Tina up at her house. They left her house and then they ended up at the McDonald's.
Oh, I thought
Okay,
that,
if she lived south of town,
Mhm.
they would have come down to University and they would have turned to the right. They would have seen the McDonald's parking lot first, and then they would have gone to the Pizza Hut.
except it's the other way. They would have, so she lived on the more southeast, near what is now Interstate 27.
Okay, then they would have come up with what the highway that was Interstate 27. It was called the Amarillo Highway.
Mhm.
And they would have gone up and they would have turned left and they would have gone by the Pizza Inn, and
Correct.
then they would have gone by the McDonald's.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
what we were getting at.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about coming from Debbie's. As I'm driving down this street, I thought, well, I wouldn't have come from Debbie's. I'd have gone to University.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No,
I have to get my
thank
train
you
of
for
thought
doing
right.
that reconnaissance for us.
we gotta love it. This is great.
Yeah. I know. Okay, so we've been on like 2 hours. I think we've tackled most of the questions. I'm gonna put the link to our case submission form in the chat, but I will also post it in the group this week. And again, by doing that, I don't want you guys to think we're just like ditching Debbie's case, because we're not. We're still gonna have the Facebook group. We're still gonna interact. We're gonna give updates as we can. It's just, we don't foresee a lot of movement happening in the next few months.
Right. And if we get any leads, that's the thing. If we get a lead, we'll follow it. I mean, if we have to go to Lubbock to follow a lead, we'll still do that.
Yeah. And we still ask anybody out there that thinks they might know anything, even if you don't think it's important, please call the crime line phone number that I've got at the top of the Facebook group. And you guys know by now, like, if you want to stay anonymous, you can always message me or George, and we promise we'll keep your identifying information anonymous and still pass the information to police.
Mhm.
Here's the number right here,
Okay. I'm trying to find our,
right there on my profile. 806.
oh yeah, it's behind us.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, taken. I'm like, look at right here. This has been fun.
Yeah.
I really great questions. I've loved all the questions, and I mean, how great to have Vicky.
I
What was I gonna say, Jen? I was gonna say something. Oh, yeah, so if anyone has, continued questions and in the next case and stuff, there'll be more on that, right, Jen? You have that in the link, or you're gonna put that in the
right
Facebook?
there. I just posted the link and for the case submission form, and you don't none of the sections of the form are required. Just fill in what you know about the victim or what a quick Google search will tell you. And we'll do the rest of the research. But what I also want to say is I hope everybody that's helped us on Debbie's case, I hope whatever we take on next, we're going to do this again. We're going to have a social media platform for the victim. We're going to do the same thing because it works. And we hope that no matter where you live, that you'll join and help us, because as you guys have all learned, and we've learned over the years, it doesn't matter where you live. Everybody has a different skill set and background that helps contribute to uncovering new information and analyzing and getting tips and getting in touch with people, so please, if you've enjoyed working on Debbie's case, stay with us and on to the next one, and let your friends know, because I think this is something that's really gonna make a difference in the future. I mean, we have almost 280,000 unsolved homicides in our country. Law enforcement can't do it alone, obviously. And they're slowly becoming amenable to accepting help. And like I said earlier, I'm hoping in my new role as an investigator with my sheriff's department that I can lay some of that groundwork for official partnerships where they will accept outside help. Because I'm going to call it my department now where I work, but we have a cold case unit and we literally don't have one detective assigned to it because they don't have enough detectives. That's why they hired some of us outsiders part-time now, is to try to tackle that backlog. And I'm hoping more agencies will adopt, that kind of concept, because there's a lot of out there with the skills that can help. So
Yeah. And I don't know if everyone has this. I have, you can post it on your Facebook page and ask people to share it, because you never know, you don't have to know the victims or the families and just get more exposure. And I posted, we have a community page. I posted it here and I've gotten a lot of submissions, here in Florida where I am. But, because people from all over know about cases that they're following that are unsolved. And so really, we'd like to have as many cases as possible to look at and review, because there's so many people who need our help. And we want to make sure that we let people know that we're, taking a look at it.
Plus through AMU, we do have a cold case team. It's taken a couple years to get it official, but my vision, because I'm running the team right now, it's basically us and all of you, whether you go to AMU or not. Our vision is to eventually branch out and have more than one case being investigated at a time. So again, the more Melissa said, the more case submissions we can get, the better. And then hopefully we'll have more teams in the future that can kind of, branch out and work their own case. So that's our big vision that we're trying to work towards. But everybody here has been such a great help and we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, anytime you need me to go out and drive around the city,
I will.
take pictures.
We know who to call.
I feel like I need to send you some gas money.
That's all right.
Yeah, that was a $200 trip.
Sunset.
I just was like, oh no, how much is that actually going to be? Because
No, it was not that far.
gas
I was
is
only a couple of miles.
Well, while you're there, Vicky, why don't you head down to, no, just.
Well, and I grew up during this time. And I talked to Jennifer a lot about the perception of what 1975 was really like. We had a lot of returning Vietnam vets at that time.
Yep.
The knife is the most interesting thing to me. And it's mainly because of the number of vets coming home. The Vietnam War ended in, and I may get this date wrong, but either 72 or 73. And so we had a lot of young men in this town who were lost.
Yeah.
I personally think when we find out who it is, it's not going to be somebody who was on our radar.
It may not be.
Very possible.
100% happened in their last case. So.
And it's mainly because of the knife. That's an unusual knife.
Yeah, it is. It's a
Even
military
for
style knife.
1975, that's a military style knife. Well, I missed the estate sale. I was in another city. I'm trying to call everybody in Lubbock County to go to this estate sale because the knife was on the picture of the estate sale. So you never know when you're going to get a clue. And I texted Jen. It was over by the time I got back.
And
But there
Vicky,
was a
you were
knife
one
like
of 3 people who text me that day saying, hey, there's this estate sale online and look at this collection of knives that's up for sale. I'm not kidding. It was the
Yeah, they texted me too.
photo.
Isn't that wild?
Again, this is the benefit of like getting everybody possible on board out there looking at things, because I wouldn't have seen that ad, you know? So
It was just in the Saturday paper or on our little, estate thing. But see, it's somebody, it's the knife.
Yeah.
If those kids had known somebody, I'm talking about her husband, their friends, everything else, that knife would have struck a chord with somebody.
I know.
They would have
Yeah.
said, hey man, that dude has a knife like that. Or hey man, I know a guy who I think might have a knife like that, but to my knowledge, that's never happened.
Yeah, and I think too, Vicky, I think from what I've heard too, a lot of the people, Debbie, Doug, Paul, like their fathers, grandfathers were in wars. And so a lot of people, my understanding, had these knives or had them around, or maybe there was a thrift store, my understanding, and they could have got them there. So my understanding really is that this wasn't such an odd thing, that some of the even
Right.
key people
That is correct.
had this knife available to them. If that makes sense.
We all had army jackets. We were all involved with the boys coming home.
Right.
When we were in junior high school, we wrote them letters.
Yeah.
Some of them we met when they came home. So it was kind of a community thing of knowing these kids who came home from the Vietnam. It looks more like a Vietnam knife than a World War II knife. I have my daddy's knives. His knives were not double-edged.
Yeah. Michelle, do you have a question you said, or are you good?
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was going to ask if anyone here had any thoughts about at Coronado High School in the yearbooks. I saw a lot of reenactments photographed with various weapons that would probably fall into that time frame. I just think the whole reenactment thing was kind of bizarre. Jennifer, I think I sent you something about it
You
like
did,
in the
yeah.
very beginning when I was like first coming onto this. I just thought it was so weird. Is that normal? It's like, has anyone thought of, were they real weapons that they were reenacting with?
No, they wouldn't have given us real weapons. No, that would not happen. They had to be fake. Now, we did have ROTC. Are you sure it was a reenactment of a war or an ROTC drill?
It was actually of a cartoon. It was like Russia, Germany, etc., like stabbing someone in the back.
Really?
They were reenacting a cartoon, and I can't find the cartoon anywhere. But if you look at it in the 1970, it's either 74 or 75 Coronado High School yearbook, I don't know, the picture's pretty interesting.
Well, they had the drama. They had the big drama class productions.
Oh.
Like if you wanted to go into drama, you went to Coronado High School. It was like their different at Monterey, it was agriculture or tennis.
Oh,
So each school kind of had their own little, I guess, I'm trying to look for the word I'm looking for, like marketing technique to get kids to go to that school.
yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing you have to realize too is that Lubbock, Texas was not desegregated at the time. So when you're looking at the yearbooks, you see no black folks. I just thought I would point that out to y'all when you're looking at those yearbooks. We did not desegregate until 1978.
You know what, Vicky? I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
It's all white.
Okay.
Coronado High School was an all-white school, as was Lubbock, Monterey. Both
Okay.
were,
All right.
which I actually wrote a paper on when I was at Texas Tech University about the fact that I never went to a school with a black person.
Wow. That's crazy. All right.
And
Well,
I
are you-
graduated in 1977, which I
Yeah.
think is an interesting, because there was racial tension. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was racial tension, and it was pretty prevalent. So you can't rule anything out at this point, I don't think.
No.
Nope, we just have to narrow, where the evidence points, it has to narrow our
Right.
focus, and that's all we can do.
Right, and I think your observation that it's somebody who knew her is
Yeah.
spot on because of the location. It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah,
that's not some place you just go drive to kill somebody.
no.
No.
But guys, my editor from AMU, who's on the East Coast, is still up. And she has 2 small children, and she has hosted this for us. So I have to wrap this up so that she can go to bed and cuss me out tomorrow for not getting any sleep.
Hi, everybody. Thank
But
you for including me.
this has been recorded, and I'm going to upload it to my YouTube channel and post it to the group in the next couple days. And then what we can do is continue the conversation in the comments there if you guys think of more things or if we miss something. But I want to thank everybody so much for your support and just staying active in the group and like brainstorming with us, and oh my gosh, researching and driving around and taking photos and all that stuff. Me and George can't thank you enough. So hopefully we'll have some good news to share in the next few months. So fingers crossed.
Yay. All right.
Y'all
Well,
have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so
Mhm.
much.
Good
Bye,
night.
everyone.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
See ya.